Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing this morning? See, we got John, Trolling for Dollars is here. Joe Paddock, Rodney Lorimore, Don, the German printing nerd. Mr. Buttram, D is here. Odessa Woodworking and Maker Shop is here. Good morning. One of my newest subscribers. Thank you for joining us this morning. Drinking coffee and getting ready for work. Today is thankfully my day off. Good morning, Ben. And Odessa Woodworking, his name is Al. So good morning, Al. Thank you for joining us. No, I did not convince the boss for the Mini Delta. Those who did not see, Monoprice had open box buys on their Mini Delta yesterday for $80, and they're gone now. Missed out on it. Well, today is Tutorial Tuesday, And what I've got lined up for us today is I'm going to show you guys how I make axles and wheels, so that you can make wheels like these right here. So I need to re-glue one of my springs popped loose while I was trying to get the gun on. But as you can see, the Scorpion is coming along. I'm going to change some stuff on the interior before I'm going to call it done. But as you can see, I got the ball joint working well, and the springs work well, other than the one that popped loose. The glue popped loose. I guess I didn't have it glued well enough. But I was I was wrenching on it pretty good trying to get that gun on. I need to open up the tolerances a little bit on that the peg that the gun mounts on. But yeah, it's ball joint works well. The spring that's still glued in place like it's supposed to be is working well. So that's what we're going to cover today. Morning, TK. Yeah, I think the model came out really well. The canopy works, and so the hinge, which I had to do some iteration on that as well, is sitting nice and flush now, and mounts into the canopy correctly. This is the one I need to make the peg that goes on the rear fender here a little smaller, because I had a heck of a time getting that on there. I ended up having to take the deburring tool that John so graciously sent me as part of that 3D printing toolkit, and waller out the hole on the gun, which its walls are kind of already thin, so I don't want to make that hole larger. I want to make the peg just a little bit smaller. But so yeah, but it works now. And I've never had a wheel that spins as good as this one. This one spins wonderfully. So yeah, that's where the Scorpion is at right now. It was a great show last night. I had a private party last night, and so that was guaranteed income rather than having to rely on tips. So it was fantastic. It's a toy, you know. Things don't always aren't realistic with toys. So, but yeah, well, you know, hub motor I guess would work. So yeah, let's get to it. Let's go to the screen share, and let me get my chat back up so I can see it again. All right. So, as with all Tutorial Tuesdays, or so far anyway, we're starting with the Blender start screen. This is the first thing that faces you when you open up Blender. But we're not going to use a box. Start with a box today. We're going to start with some cylinders. So we are going to delete the box. Go to Create. We are going to create a cylinder. Scale it down a little bit. Scale it on the Z. Now, of course, if you were making this for something, you would want to, you know, use the Measure It tool to measure your dimensions. This isn't for anything functional. This is just to show you guys how I do it. So I'm not going to worry about the scale today. We'll save that for another tutorial vid. All right. So I'm going to start with a cylinder. We are going to. Oh wait, let me get my screen share or my screen capture keys on. I meant to do that before I even started the stream, and I forgot. so you guys can see what I'm doing on the desktop screencast keys. I'm hoping version 2.8 of Blender puts this natively back end Blender, and I don't have to run an external script to do it. Blender 2.8 is due out, I think next month. Which Blender 2.8 changes a lot of things. So I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate. I'm going to scale this one down. About like that. Get rid of the perspective view. I'm going to scale it out along the Y-axis so that it's about the same length as a wheel, just a little bit longer. I'm going to slide it back here. All right, so again, you'll make your life easier as you go if you rename stuff. So this is going to be the wheel. This is going to be the axle. Morning, Brian. And Rover. Rover's here as well. I'll try to keep an eye on chat, bouncing back and forth, but yeah, I'll probably spend most of my time looking at the screen. All right, so we're going to hide the wheel for right now. I'm going to start with the axle. Now in toys, a lot of you have seen before, you've had the wheels off of a toy if you're anything like me and like to take apart your toys when you were a kid. And you've seen the axle has like a small point that that pinches together a little bit, so that as you press it through the cylinder of the wheel, it pops back out at the other end and prevents the wheel from sliding out. Yeah, the little barbs to keep the wheel on. Exactly. So we're actually going to make another duplicate of the axle because we're going to, well, I'll do that here in a minute, because we're going to use that to cut the hole out of the wheel. So we're going to extrude that out a little ways. Maybe not that far, about like that. And extrude this one out a little bit more. Then S to scale it out. Yeah, it should be good enough. Then we're going to extrude it out again, and extrude it out again, and scale it down. All right, so we have the basic form of our axle right now. So now that we have the basic form of our axle, we're going to duplicate it, leave it right in place, don't move it, and just hit enter. And I'm going to call this one axle blank. And so we're going to scale that one up just a hair. Just a hair more. Because you want it, the axle blank, you want this line right here to be just inside the diameter of this. So with that, I'm going to slide this back a little so it lines up. Okay, and now we're going to hide the axle blank because we're not done modeling on the axle. We'll tab back into edit view. And now what I do is I take and hit the B key to get a box selection going. And I select all those faces. And delete them. So now you're left with something that looks like this. Go into vertice select mode. And the reason you want to go into wireframe mode when you're doing stuff like this is you want to be able to select all the way through the model. Scale those along the Z to straighten that line out a little bit. So we have our basic shape. Now I'm going to go into edge select mode. I'm going to select that edge and that edge. Hit F to make a face. That edge and that edge. F to make a face. That edge and that edge. F. That edge and that edge. F. That edge and the edge across from it. F. And all we're doing now is closing in the hole that we made so that it will be manifold. I hope by doing these tutorials like this, I'm showing you guys that this stuff isn't that hard. Now if you hold the Alt key while you select a line, it will select all the lines that are continuous to that one along the same path. And if you do that, when you make a face, then you're closing in that little half circle kind of shape. All right. So there's essentially our axle. Our axle is done. You can decide for yourself how you want to mount it to the model or the frame. And that will go, of course, on that end. So now we're going to bring our axle blank back and our wheel back. I keep hitting the wrong one. So we're going to scale the wheel up now. And of course you can model more complicated wheels just for the sake of the tutorial. I'm just making a solid wheel. My goal with these tutorials is to keep them really simple, just to show you the basic procedure, so that anyone can do this. Literally, anyone can do this. The stuff I've done now, if I wasn't explaining it as I go and things like that, I could literally do in a matter of a couple minutes. So select our axle blank. You can see that we've got it active right now. And then we are going to select, hold down shift and select the wheel. All right. So we selected this first. We hold down the shift and select the wheel. And now that we have those both selected, we're going to go Tools. And again, Bool Tools is the add-on I recommended everybody in the last tutorial Tuesday that is going to be a very beneficial thing. It makes Boolean operators much simpler. So then what we want is we want a difference. And the difference, what a difference does is it takes the first object we selected and subtracts it from the current object. So the first object we selected was the axle blank that we made, which is the hole we wanted to cut out of the wheel. Then the second thing we selected was the wheel. So when we click difference, Blender has now, if I hide the axle, You notice there is no more axle blank over here in the scene. There's no more. That part is gone, and that's because that part was used to cut its shape out of the wheel. So now if we have the axle hidden, we go into the wireframe view so you can see what I'm talking about. It cut that shape out of the wheel. So now when we unhide the axle, you can see that the axle pin sits inside there. And that opening should allow those, you have to be careful when you put it together because you can't snap that off, will allow those to flex in just a little bit. So gently, when you press it in, gently until it snaps in, because if you go too forceful with it, you will break one of those pegs off. And you may find that you have to come back and iterate the axle or the wheel design to open up more tolerance on the axle. And if you find that you need to do that after the fact, it's as simple as if you wanted to take it out of the wheel, you would tab into edit mode on the wheel, and just for the sake of argument here, I'm going to deselect it so you can see the best way to select it. Just take you a box and select all those. And if you needed to scale that up, you decided it needed a little more tolerance, so you scaled it up a little bit. Now keep in mind when you do that, it's scaling along all axes, and you don't necessarily want that, so you may have to go in after the fact and select those vertices and bring them back in. Now what I do for the axles on my vehicles, they literally just clip onto the flat frame. And so if you wanted to make something like that, we'll make a cube. We'll scale the cube down. We'll bring it over until it intersects the cylinder for the axle. Tab into edit mode. We'll ring cut it twice. Control R is a ring cut. We hit enter, and then before moving the mouse, don't move the mouse, hit S to scale. Scale them along the Z and get those lines, just a little bit wider than whatever frame you're clipping it onto. And then we're going to make a vertical ring cut about there. Go back into face select. Delete those faces. Go back into edge select. Select those two edges. F to create a face. F to create a face. And now we're going to use another Boolean operator to join the clip that will clip it onto the frame to the axle. Go to Tools. Go down to Bool Tools. Union. What a union is, it joins the two parts together, makes them one. So if you printed that out, if you printed those two pieces, because now it's just two pieces, the axle and the wheel, you would have an axle that you can snap into the wheel, and the wheel should roll. Printing orientation. cylindrical shapes work best when the cylinder travels up the z-axis. So if you rotated it so that this is on the build plate, you'd have some supports under here, but you'd have no supports here, and it does a more accurate job printing circular shapes, moving up the z-axis. And that's really all there is to it. So making a wheel and an axle. Now, you know, of course, I'm sure you'll want to make something fancier, prettier than just a cylinder for a wheel, but that we'll get into you know, modeling more complex shapes and stuff like that in some future tutorials. Right now, each one of these tutorials, I want to break them down into small segments and teach, you know, basic functions. So last week we learned how to do print and place hinges. This week we learned how to do wheels and axles. So now I will turn full focus over to the chat. Does anybody have any questions? Ben's learning. Woohoo! Morning, Ben. How is your quest for 100 followers on your Facebook gaming streams going? Those who don't know, Ben does a gaming stream on Facebook where he 3D prints something while playing a game like Quake Champions and stuff like that. I'm going to make you a mod, Ben, so you can share your link to that if you would like to. So he 3D prints something and has a camera on it while he's playing a game like Quake Champions, and usually tries to find something to print that's related to the game he's playing. It's interesting, you know. It is not PG-13. So fair warning if there are kiddos in the room. But Ben does that almost every night, pretty often. He's trying to get 100 followers on his Facebook page. So if you like 3D printing and you like gaming, you like, you know, chatting with somebody while he games and watching his 3D print, go check out Ben. He's a good friend of mine, and he's a good dude. Good morning, Matt/Jake. And he's on a quest right now to try to get 100 followers on his Facebook gaming stream. So I thought I'd give him a shout out there, and if some of you are interested in that, help him along. So yeah, we learned how to make a wheel and an axle today. And, you know, of course, you know, if you look at mine, they're a little more complicated than this, and maybe we'll do that now. I'll show you a finished product on this. I don't need to save this because this is just a few minutes of work. It's really easy. Let's open up the VSV. Which is the Jeep that is on Thingiverse. So anybody interested in printing it, the base model of the Jeep is on Thingiverse. The 4-door version, I'm going to release that December 1st, along with the hardtop upgrades and the turret upgrades. My Patreon subscribers have had access to all this stuff for a while now, and there are some upgrade kits and whatnot that I'm going to leave as Patreon exclusives. There's a lift kit and stuff like that. But, you know, again, you guys feel free to, you know, take the skills that you're learning here, you know, watching me in Blender, and make your own upgrades and modifications, and then print them and show them to me. I would love to see that. All right, so I'm gonna hide the tires, and maybe that's a good one for next week. Maybe I'll show you how to do tires. And I'm going to hide the frame to get it out of the way. I'm going to hide the bumper. Hide. Get all the stuff out of the way. So you can see that's exactly how I do my wheels and axles. The design of my axles are just a little bit more complicated, but that's only because, you know, I made them a little, you know, aesthetically different. I found putting this little shield behind the back of the wheel helps it roll a little bit better. And then, you know, that's a more complex wheel design than what I showed you today how to make, but it starts with the same principle. It's just a cylinder, and then the cylinder is modeled out from there. There you go, Brian. Yeah, go for it, man. So there you go. That's how the, you know, that's a more complex version of what I just showed you how to make today, and it's not hard. It is not hard. And so I hope you guys can take this and go out and make some stuff. Maybe just make a really simple, you know, blocky car using that. You know, people people put simpler things than that on Thingiverse. And just the fact that you have rolling wheels, you'll be above some of the other things I've seen out there that don't have rolling wheels. So, right? Yeah, Volvo, they're boxy, but they're good. That should have been their slogan. Yeah, from everything Ben's told me, Facebook is a lot easier for gaming streams. But yeah, that's nothing, you know, it's just a more complex design of the exact same thing I showed you. So that's the tutorial for today. I hope you guys learned something. Now we'll hang out and chat. So now the people who tuned in for just the tutorial, the learning part is probably, you know, the tutorial part is over. The learning may not be over because I'm going to do some other stuff today. But, and you are going to get to watch that, and I'll screencast my keys and all that stuff when I get back to it. But yeah, I did want to update those that are interested in the ongoing tornado saga, the TiVo tornado, that is. I still haven't went and bought a multimeter. I'm going to do that today. I got to go to the bank, and while I'm out, I'll stop in and buy a multimeter. But I was curious if voltages were affecting the print, if that was what the issue was. So just out of curiosity, I went ahead and opened up the control box and opened up the potentiometer on the y-axis, because that's the one that has the problem. Open it up just a hair, just to see if it made any difference. And let me go to the webcam close-up real quick. If I can get it to focus. This camera has an awful autofocus. Here it goes. So you can see the Y is not in the middle because it's still not right, but it's much cleaner. It almost came out decent. Now, because it was too short, it also filled in the X, and the Z is all wonky. But, you know, considering this is where I was before, dadgum, autofocus is terrible on this camera. That was the Y I had before, and you can see all sorts of shifts and infill that poked out through the walls. So just slightly opening up that potentiometer and giving the Y motor just a tiny bit more voltage, which I have no idea how much voltage I'm giving it right now, so that's why I got to get a multimeter and dial it in right. But it looks like we are on the right track. Yeah, Brian, I get it. Brian is the king of puns. So yeah, it's still, got a long way to go, but I think we've discovered now, because I have checked everything mechanical on it, that it's the amount of voltage that is going to the steppers. So I think once I get those calibrated, I think the tornado will be printing. Which I will be so glad when the tornado is printing. All right, so back to the screen share. All right, I'm not going to save what I did there because I messed all sorts of stuff up. And some of you may have seen this is a project in the works. Now y'all know how big the Jeep is. It is not small. So this carrier, this hauler that I'm making, can fit 3 of them on the flat part of the bed. I get this design done. When I get to the point of printing it out, I'm going to have to find a filament sponsor, because it's going to be rolls and rolls of filament. Check the power supply voltage, then run Y driver at 0.85 to 0.9. Okay, I will check that out. Yeah, you're right, Brian. It definitely looks like a job for the FK1. I think I did a preliminary measurement on the trailer, and the trailer itself, if you wanted to print it in one piece, was 970 millimeters long. So yeah, this thing is going to be monstrous, and a monstrous undertaking, and I will try to, as I design it, to cut the parts apart into manageable size prints, so that people with like ANET A8 and Prusa size machines can still print the parts. I was toying with making the trailer a double-decker trailer, or at least have a removable double-decker option. So I may do that yet. I could make the parts where they bolt together, but then people have to go out and buy hardware. And I hate going out to buy hardware. So I try to make things where it glues or snaps. But yeah, I mean, I could design some points to bolt things together. Yeah, I guess I'm definitely in the minority when it comes to that, because I don't order a lot of stuff online, and that's because, well, my business is a cash business, and so I get paid in cash, and cash is usually what I have. So I go places where I can spend my cash. Like, my wife handles all the bank account stuff. I have no idea what's even in the bank account. I have a debit card, but I never use it. I never use it because I don't know what's in the bank. I don't want to spend money and then find out I overdrew the account because my wife paid some bills. So yeah, that's an upcoming project. You're right, Harbor Freight does have hardware, but nobody has like M3s. Nobody. Nobody locally in Clarksville, Tennessee has M3s. I went to every hardware store in Clarksville, Tennessee. I went to every auto parts store in Clarksville, Tennessee when I was needing some M3s to put the A-net back together. And nobody has any. Now, fortunately, I found the M3s I needed in the bag that the guy I bought the A-net from included a bag of parts, and I hadn't looked through the bag of parts, and turned out I had what I needed here all along. Yeah, even the Ace here in Clarksville stopped at M4. And then let's see some other upcoming. There it is. Some other upcoming projects. There's a nose cone. Turn it back on. See. And up. They want to do that. I had the wing selected. Okay, add modifier, mirror. That's another upcoming project. It's still in the works. Yeah, it's kind of inspired by that, which, I mean, that's just, I've been playing around. There's the jet without the boosters. Yeah, see, I could get M4s at the auto parts store. I guess M4s are at least possible to find because I guess some foreign cars use them. So the local auto parts store had M4, went down to M4, but they stopped at M4. And everything on the A-net was M3s. I was like, yeah, we have a Michaels and a Hobby Lobby here. I didn't check them for any kind of screws. They might have had them. And now that I've learned how to make functional compression springs in PLA, which this is just so satisfying, you have no idea. Now that I've learned how to make functional compression springs, I plan on doing some functional suspension stuff, and I may even integrate that into that big hauler that I'm working on. A cool image link, go ahead, as long as it's, you know, not NSFW. Okay, I will check Hobby Lobby next time I need some M3s. It's a Macross picture. Ooh. Oh, that is cool. Yeah, I dig Macross stuff. I dig Macross stuff. I used to. I still have the book laying around. I used to play the Robotech role-playing game. I haven't designed any missiles or bombs for the jet yet, but it'll need some armament before it's all said and done. But yeah, I liked Palladium RPGs. There's the Turtles one too. Which both of these books are out of print. Can't get either one of them anymore. Whoop. I still had them in here because I was showing the guys in the D&D group a few weeks ago. And they've just stayed in here in my room. Morning, Robbie Mac. Hope you're doing well, buddy. Got those 2 Ender 2s on the way. He's going to have an Ender 2 print farm. Which I was going to ask you, have you had the need yet to take apart the control box on an Ender 2? I'm going to have to do that soon, and there's so many screws all over that thing. I'm like, which ones come out to just take the control box off? Is it the ones underneath? Is it ones on top? Is it both? Morning, Roy Holly. I showed people how to make wheels and axles today, Roy. And I should have said at the end of the tutorial, you know, if you like the content and you want to see more Tutorial Tuesdays and things like that, like and subscribe and all that stuff, because the people who just came here for the tutorial are already gone. I should have said that right at the end of the tutorial. I'm just not good at self-promotion. I'm not. I did actually tweet this out this morning, which I don't normally do. I haven't come up with a name for this jet yet. It's still just labeled as jet. Although in the current colors I've got it, it looks like a seagull. Name it Fred. It's Fred the Jet. I don't know, Mr. Buttram's good at coming up with names. He came up with the Scorpion. Watching the stream designing the Scorpion, he gave it its name. And as soon as he said it, I'm like, it totally makes sense. It totally does look like a Scorpion. Only instead of claws, it has Gatling guns, and instead of a stinger, it has a railgun. Yeah, Brian, that was great, man. You being on the JTOG stream. Now, I must say, with you in the mix, it just made it harder for JT to keep Ivan on the on the rails. But that's the brilliance of that is Ivan is such a energetic and brilliant guy. So energetic and so brilliant. But JT is there to kind of rein him in when he starts to fly away chasing a squirrel. And then Brian kept throwing squirrels out. Ivan likes to chase squirrels, and Brian was distributing squirrels left and right. And JT was like, I don't have any control of this. Scalda. Good morning, sir. Thank you. So, I know these look very, very much like the Macross boosters, and I'm worried that they look too much like the Macross boosters in order to, like, get me in trouble. But I like them. Oh, sorry, D. I forgot. I forgot about your dogs, man. I'm sorry. I can say that word all I want, and my dog could care less. Go fix that furnace, Ben. Well, you can see the one that's still attached on this side. Works well. The glue popped loose on the other one while I was putting the tail gun on, and I haven't re-glued it yet. But the one on that side is still attached. You can see it flexes quite nice. And it adds just a little bit of structural rigidity so that when it's sitting on a surface, it doesn't want to sag. It just adds just enough spring that it doesn't want to sag in the middle while sitting on a flat surface, but allows it to move up and down when the surface demands it. So yeah, I think the aesthetic come out well as well. Of course, one of the guys I showed it to was giving me a hard time. He's like, well, I would just, if I was up against that thing, I would just shoot it right there. If it needs those springs, I would just shoot it right there because those springs are totally exposed. I'm like, it's a toy, man. Don't overthink it. It's like most of the G.I. Joe toys didn't even have canopies to hide their guys. Their guys were just sitting right on top of it. So if you going up against one of those G.I. Joe tanks, where do you shoot it? You shoot it where the guy's sitting on top. Starstream? It's okay. It's okay. It sounds too much like Starscream, though, from Transformers. No, I'm not showing the secret project we're working on, Ben. This is a different project. This is an old project at this point that I just haven't went back to work on. Right. Shh. I started designing this back when the only printer I had was still the X1, and I thought there's no point in designing this one. All I have is the X1. The X1 will never print this. Ever, ever, ever. Because it's way too big. So no, these guys are trying to come up with a name for the jet, which you can always tweet me. My Twitter address is up there above the screen. Albatross. I said with the boosters off and the color scheme I have it on now, it kind of looks like a seagull. Robbie Mack wants to call it Bob. So I still got to make the landing gear for it. I got to close up the hole that's in the nose cone there. The thing that's been giving me fits is this canopy. This canopy is a pain. Everyone has a friend called Dave. Do I have any friends called Dave? I don't know. Talking about chasing squirrels, I'm chasing Daves now. Do I have any Daves? I don't know if I know any Daves. Other than my cousin Dave and... Rat with Wingstar. I don't know. I imagine y'all be tweeting me for days while we come up with a name for it. Because, you know, like the F-22 is the Raptor, the F-35 is what, the Joint Strike Fighter, A-10 is the Warthog. I don't know. It's going to be a fun one. Fun project. I don't know if I changed something or not, so I'm going to save it. And I still need to, on this one, I still need to come up with a, and see, this is the design challenge I'm facing with this one, and it'll be done when I get to that point, is what I'm going to do with the back door. Designing a functional, printable roll-up door like is on like a U-Haul truck is challenging, to say the least. Good morning, Mike. Never let the machines win. How's your Team Orange Jeep coming? He is printing the Jeep. Seahawk. I like that. I like that. Doors like the step van. Oh, the just swing out doors. Yeah, that would be the easiest. But the thing that I try to do with each one of my models is I try to tackle a new problem. And with each one of those new problems that I tackle, each one of those new items that I learn how to design, I can then take and use that again in future designs. That's why, like the Jeep, the only thing, you know, the Jeep was functional hinges and functional wheels. The subjects of the last two, the first two, the only two tutorial Tuesdays was the functional hinges and the functional wheels. And then with the Scorpion, I've tackled springs and ball joints. And each one of those things that I accomplish, then I can actually just go back to the model where I use them, copy the part straight out of it, paste it into the new design while I'm working on it, reorient it or modify it as need be, whether it's scaling or using a Boolean operator to add something to the end of the piece or something like that. Cool, man. So it's coming together. Drafting a hypercube. Oh, cool. Yeah, I don't know what I'll do when I get all 5 printers up and working again. When I get all 5 printers up and working again, I might have to take one apart to start doing things to it. Like the A8, I would like to go to an AM8 or a Core A8 on it. 2 layers of flexible material. Yeah, that That somehow feels like cheating, though, Brian. It just does. And it wouldn't be accessible to everyone. Production line. Yeah. Right now the TiVo Tornado hasn't worked since the day I got it, but I think I'm on the right track to getting it fixed. I believe it's adjusting the potentiometers on the stepper motors. I believe that's causing my issue. So I'm gonna, when I go to the bank today to make my deposit, I will stop in Home Depot because it's literally across the street from my bank, and snag a multimeter. And then when I come home, I will try to adjust those potentiometers. And then the other one that's not working is the Ender 2. And the Ender 2 is it's sad face broken. It's the board burned up. It's got that nifty burnt electronic smell when you sniff around the control box. And Creality wants $43 for the board for a $130 printer. So I'm like, I think if I got to spend that much, I'm going to do something even more fun and spend a little bit more and try to put a board that has no earthly business being in an Ender 2 in an Ender 2. Right now, I'm thinking about the Lurge board. Okay, well, when I get around to taking the board out, I can send it to you, D. It might not be anything bad, but I'm no electronics whiz by any means. Look at me, I don't even own a multimeter. I had to go to YouTube to look up a video on how to check the voltage and adjust the potentiometers. But I did open up the box yesterday. For those that missed it, I opened up the control box yesterday on the TiVo Tornado, and I just gave it a little bit more voltage on the Y, because the Y motor is the one that's not doing its job, just to see if it changed anything. And I printed another calibration cube, and it printed much better. It's still not right because the Y is not in the middle of the box, and it's way too short in the Y direction. So short, in fact, it basically just filled in the X. But it didn't do any of this nonsense or this nonsense. Stuff just hanging off the back. No, I turned it like a 1/16 of an inch, if that, just to see if it changed anything. And just doing that, everything got smoother. It still didn't get the right length on stuff, but it stopped printing infill outside of the box, and it stopped layer shifting all over the place. Well, not even layer shifting. It's like every once in a while it prints a layer where it goes the right distance. Like this layer here, it actually went out to the 20 millimeters like it was supposed to, but all the layers before it did not. So, I've been back and forth with Chris Riley about the issues on the Tornado, and because he's who I bought it from, and I've been doing all the things that he's been suggesting, And stepper voltages was the next thing that he wanted to check. Now, of course, he did tell me to go get a multimeter and put the multimeter on it and all that. But I'm like, I just want to see if it makes any difference at all, and just gave it a little nudge and see if it was if it did anything, and it did. It definitely improved. Because all the wheels are good, all the belts are good, all the bolts are tight. No flat spots on any wheels. The belt tension's good. The frame is solid. The frame is square. The extrusions are all perfectly flat. He knows a thing or two. So yeah, I thought, what the heck? Well, give it a try. The boards for the Tornado are cheaper than the boards for the Ender 2. So I'm like, if I burn up the board, those boards are actually cheap. Okay, cool. I will check that here in a bit, Roy. So yeah, man, I can't believe that tutorial went by so fast. I expected it to be short, but I didn't know it was going to be like, what, 10 minutes maybe? So yeah, I want to come up with a roll-up door. Design is what I'm hoping to do for this. And that's the obstacle keeping me from getting this design out there. And right now I'm thinking about combining the print and place hinge with panels. So you'd print out a bunch of little print and place hinges and then glue the panels to them. And then I need the tracks. So I was like out in my garage staring at the tracks at the garage door, and I probably look crazy standing out in my garage just going, Let's see, what other low-hanging fruit projects are there? Oh. Oh, that's not a low-hanging fruit. That's a... Nope, that's not that one. There we go. I was working on a building blocks kind of thing. Snap together structures. Yeah, there probably will be a few variants on the back door. Right now, what has me stopped is I'm hung up on wanting to do the roll up door, and so I'm hung up on wanting to do that and not really exactly sure how to accomplish it so that it's printable in PLA and easy to assemble and do. So and since it is such a large piece, I need to make another design that uses the same functionality that's smaller, because I don't want to spend a lot of time and a lot of filament printing out big pieces to test something. So I need to just take the thought I have in my head and make a small sample, test it, and if it works, then make the big one. So yeah, the building thing is in the works. The thing I didn't like about it was I didn't like how big, when I was trying to do it, I didn't like how big the spacers are between the wall pieces. So I'm redesigning that a little bit and rethinking it. But, you know, eventually you'll have like brick wall panels like that. So you could print out the brick wall and snap as many of them together as you want. This was testing the joining pieces. If you weren't using the joining pieces, you would snap as many of these together in. But that was where I was not liking it, is when I went up or down. So that's what I'm still working on that. I'm thinking maybe a system where something just tabs in and makes slots all the way around, and something that just tabs in, and then you have tabs that are corner tabs and tabs that are straight wall connectors. Or I could do something like I did on the guard shack, and just make it where it just connects at the corners. And then I've had the armor projects going on as well, which I don't know if I'm going to oh, that's not the right ones. Where's the... Oh, I guess the right ones are on the figure right now. Where's it? Wherever he's at. Yeah. I don't know where he's at. So yeah, helmets. I made the helmet blank so that it's a basis starting point to design off of, and I can design any number of helmets. Of course, these would be better printed with a resin printer. Just, you know, obvious. Because they're tiny. And we had some... I made and saved a blank for the chest armor piece, so that as I come up with more stuff to put on it, I got a starting point that I don't have to recreate every time. So I have this blank starting point. And I do that with all my stuff, where I've got certain components where I save a blank base component. So that's something to think about in your design process as you go forward. If it's something you're going to be making multiple designs that all serve the same function, maybe you create the base blank first, and then from that base blank, like this was what I modeled off of the base blank for the chest armor, and you can see it's got shoulder mounted missile launchers and missiles. And if I could find the figure, what I do then, he's wearing that right now. There he is. But he's not wearing the helmet, and I don't see the helmet. I may have to print another one. Good thing is tiny little things like that don't take long to print. So losing it or whatever is not a big deal. So yeah, there's and so it will print on FDM. It would just look better in resin. So yeah, I've stepped into making some action figure accessories as well. Now, and I've got a couple of my Patreon supporters here. I don't know if you guys have any interest in the uh, figure accessories. So I was thinking just putting them up on Thingiverse and not going the through the Patreon exclusive time. If that's something that is going to upset anybody, and then you want your exclusive time to it, then yeah. I just I know most of you don't even. I think Roy's the only one that has any figures, and he has core figures. I don't know if they're compatible with this stuff because this is kind of GI Joe specific. There you go, Hawk. You were looking for other printers to order. Get your pre-order in on the Prusa SL1. It looks like it's going to be. It looks like it's going to be a very good resin printer. I would say. I still think the Moai is going to give better results because the Moai is actually using a laser. Okay. Well, yeah, I was like, I can make them, Patreon exclusives for a month as well and then put them out later, but I was like I don't know that any of my Patreon supporters have that much interest in the figure accessories, and I thought I'd just go ahead and put them on Thingiverse. You might have ordered one this morning. Um, yeah, I think, and the Moai 200 that's coming out. Um, if you're getting the quality that the original Moai got or better, it's also got a 200 by 200 by 200 build volume, which is insane in a resin printer. It's huge, but it's also got a huge price tag with it. Well, I guess it's not huge for what it is. It's huge for me. But a 200 by 200 by 200 build volume, I could print vehicles in resin. That'd be an expensive vehicle, though. Resin's expensive. But I would like to. I would like to have a resin printer now. I originally wasn't interested, but then I started making the accessories for the figures, and then I started thinking about things like the canopy for the jet would be really nice printed in resin because you could print it in a nice clear resin or a nice orange tinted clear resin. Yeah, TK, exactly. That new Moai 200 having a 200 by 200 by 200 build volume. I mean, that's remarkable. And the Garrett and Chelsea were talking about resins um, one day. I was watching their for a while the charity stream that they were doing a couple weeks ago, where they were playing video games for 24 hours for charity, and and they were talking about resins. They got on the subject of resins, and they do a lot of resin printing. And they said that the Peopoly brand resin doesn't smell bad. Chelsea actually said she kind of likes the smell of the Peopoly brand resin. I forget whose resin it was. They said stunk to high heaven and was like nauseating. Um, I think they said it was Monoprice's resin. They tried it, and I mean, don't quote me on that. You'd have to ask Garrett and Chelsea to be sure. But I think it was monoprice they were talking about. But I do definitely remember it was the Peopoly brand resin. They said didn't have a too bad a smell to it. You only smell the resin when you open the door. Yeah, I think my room has my makerspace has two windows in it. I think I could somehow vent it out the window, and the window's open from top or bottom, so I could come up with some sort of venting solution for that and vent it straight out the window. So it's got me thinking that I might jump into the world of resin at some point. Um, Not immediately, not soon. So don't think I'm going out running out buying a resin printer tomorrow. I'm not, because I know. Christmas is coming up, and I've got 3 kids and a grandkid. Roy, TK is kind of a resin printing expert, and he's here in the chat. So at Turin Carnes 3D Tanks, he does a lot of resin printing. He's got a Moai and a Photon, and I believe the Photon is what you bought, isn't it, Roy? So yeah, TK is a resin printing expert. So if you have questions, TK has always been very, very open and friendly in giving advice about resin printing. Yeah, something I was talking about last night. I was talking on Discord with 3D Medic Vince. Even though I don't have any multi-material units, I know that they are becoming a more commonplace item. So I want to tackle making a model for multi-material. And so that is on the immediate horizon that I'm going to sit down and try to tackle that. And I guess Roy Holly has an MMU now, doesn't he? And he likes to print my stuff. So Roy, I may use you as a guinea pig, man. I may design something. I'll try to keep it small and simple, and design something that will use multi-material, and just send it straight to you. Because it'd be cool if like the sports car, the Hammerhead. The Hammerhead, it'd be cool if I could work in like a body striping package, like or not pinstripes, but racing stripes and logos or something to make it look kind of snazzy and cool, but cut it straight into the model so that it was designed for multi-material, and then someone with a multi-material unit could print it out, and so I may start simple, um, and do something like redo the grill for the Jeep, set up to be a multi-material print. Because I know you've already got the Jeep. You already got a couple of the Jeeps. So if I set the grill up to be a multi-material print, you could just pop the grill out of one of your current Jeeps after you print it, if it's successful, and then have a cool multi-material grill. So, yes. Yes, Roy, I think that is what I'm going to do. Brian, thank you for stopping in and hanging out today. I'm sorry we haven't done a lot of learning after the tutorial. The tutorial was kind of the object of the day, and then after that I didn't have any plans. I'm just kind of sitting here chatting with you guys. So yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do, Roy. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to try to cut up the grill into multiple STLs to create multiple colors. And I'll send you the grill as a multi-material test. And then if it's successful, you'll have a cool multi-material grill that will look neat. It'll be better than the standard grill. And if it works out, I will put it up. I will put it up in the future on Thingiverse, just the grill by itself as a multi-material print, as a remix or add-on kit, whatever. I may design an all-new grill while I'm at it. Let's see. Unsorted. VSV2. Let's copy it. Let's go to a all new layer. And for those who didn't know, here's something you can learn real quick. Blender has multiple layers. You know, just like thinking like Photoshop has layers and things like Blender has layers too. Down here is your layer panel. So when you select a layer, you can move stuff to layers, or you can copy something and put it on a layer by itself. So I like to, when I'm working with one individual piece and I need to get it away from everything else, sometimes I'll just move it to another layer to work on it. Right. I think I may make it even a little more complicated than that, since the MMU2 can go up to 5 colors. But then, yeah, the headlights and the parking lights would be different color, and then like a grill insert, and yeah, it'd be fun. We'll see. We'll see if I'm getting in over my head, but I think it'll be neat. Right, yeah. Well, and you know, obviously the base models will maintain just printing them as one piece, because I don't have an MMU of any kind. I don't have a palette. There's not a palette 2 on the way. There's not a Prusa Mark III with a MMU 2 on the way. Although my wife said she might buy me a Prusa Mark III for my birthday. Maybe. If I'm good. So I'm trying to be good. Let me be good. Maybe I can be really good and I can talk her into a Prusa Mark III and an MMU2 at the same time. Halfway through printing the moon, 1 kilogram of filament so far. Cool. Ultimaker 2 Go. I don't think I've heard of that one. Is that new? I get you, Jake. I get you. A few years old and discontinued. Yeah, I've never seen it. I guess even in its prime, it wasn't that popular or something, because I've never seen one. My dog still has. He's over 2 years old now. He still has and still loves the very first toy I bought him the day that we brought him the day after we brought him home. I took him to the pet store when he was just a teeny tiny little 6-pound puppy. I took him to the pet store, and this was the only toy in there that when he was teeny tiny that he liked and wasn't scared of, and he still has it. And he still loves it. It is still his favorite toy. He still plays with it every day. I was like, my kids have never had a toy that they've played with every day for 2 years. That's one of the reasons I hate buying stuff for my kids on Christmas, because I'm like, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna work my butt off to make money to buy you something that 3 months from now I'm gonna ask you where it's at and you won't even know. Yeah, he plays with it every single day, and he even sleeps with it. Like he'll cuddle up to it, and he's much bigger than the bear now. When I got it, he fit in the palm of my hand, and so the bear was big to him because he was tiny. He was just a baby. He was only when we got him, he was too young to be separated from his mom. I think he was only 6 weeks old. Come here. And I think that's why he is so dependent on us, because we have had him since he was 6 weeks old. And he was just a tiny little puppy. And he is so overly dependent on us, it's unreal. Yes, I love. Play with your bear. Play with your bear. So yeah, so that's on the immediate agenda, because I've been talking about making designs for multi-material units, even though I don't have one, just because I know they're becoming more popular, and I think if I have things available for folks with the multi-material systems to print, it will give them something else to print, and maybe urge some of them to print some of my stuff. It's a little self-serving, I know. But the goal of designing this stuff is to design stuff people want to print. So if I start designing some stuff for the MMU guys, even though I don't have one, then and luckily I know 3 guys pretty well that all have MMU2s, between Roy and Chris Riley and Walter. They all have MMU2s, so I can reach out to them if I need some guinea pigs. Yes, yes. You are being very needy right now. Why are you being so needy? What do you need? Are you out of water or food? Because usually this is his way of telling me that I need to go pay attention to something. Ooh, and Mike's got one coming around Christmas. Cool, dude. So then I will know 4 people with MMUs. Oh, cool. Okay. So yeah, if I can offer stuff for them to print, because right now I don't think there's a lot of things out there for multi-material folks. I think the pickings are still kind of slim. So if I can get a good grasp of it and start putting some stuff out there, maybe even remixes of stuff I've already got out there. Some remix the grill in multi-material, remix some of the body panels so that they're set up for multi-material for, like printing the tail lights into the back and things like that. You know, it'll give the multi-material folks some options. Even something as simple as these little accessory lights. If I can make them multi-material. I know Roy did a pretty good job of layer height changing on them. Right. Yeah, I could put text on the tires. So you could do, raised white lettering on tires or whatever color you choose, but you know. So those are all things that are possible now because of the MMU units out there and the pallets that are on the way. And since I don't have one and won't, having some people that do, that I can say, if you're looking for something to print, here you go. Give it a try and tell me if it works. Will be nice. Yeah, A10M, the A20M, the CRX, the Zone Star machines. Ben Craig has his Z9 and I forget what the other one is. With the dual color mixing nozzles and such. It'll be interesting to see. What I would be really intrigued to see is if anyone could ever get multiple multi-material units to work with a mixing nozzle machine. And I think that could be, the ultimate end game for FDM is if you can mix the ultimate end game would be able to mix 6 colors. And then you would do cyan, magenta, yellow, black, and white. Cyan, magenta, yellow, black, white. Oh, and then another extruder for soluble support material. And then you would have, so that's why you would need 6 in. Yeah, or even if you could get like one of those mixing hot ends and yeah, run 2 pallet units at the same time, which I don't know. The software for that is probably very complex and may never be achievable. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if it is, because it's already still not sold on mixing printers. Yeah, I think a lot of it is how well you get them dialed in, and it seems like most of the companies that are putting mixing printers out there are the budget line of printers, with probably the most expensive of the mixing printers being the CRX. Because most of the others are sub $400 machines. And so how much of that is the quality of components and the quality of the printer over, mixing not working? But maybe the problems with mixing are such that the upper tier manufacturers don't want to mess with it. I don't know. And then well, Hicktop has a independent dual extruder machine that's reasonably budgeted. That's the same size as a CR10, but it's got dual independent extruders on a linear rail. Joe, the 3D Maker Noob, was doing a review on one. He hasn't released the review yet. He's just kind of shown people. Yeah, IDEX system. And the early prints that he was showing with it looked great. I think his earliest complaint was they don't have any form of like purge system to prime the nozzle. But he's talking with the company on how they need to do that and guiding through that. So maybe that's something that down the future Hicktop will have for that printer. And then I know Ben, if he's still here, he's got the BCN Sigmax with, and I think it's dual extruder, independent dual extruder. All right, so I need to make this a clean slate and start over. I think my dog is outside barking, which isn't like him. Pardon me just a moment. I gotta see what he's barking at because it's not like him to do that. I think he chased a rabbit out of the backyard. Okay. Oh yes, you're right. The Formbach T-Rex is an IDEX. I didn't know if you were still there. You've also got the Sigmax, right? And it's an IDEX as well, isn't it? Oh, no worries, Ben. Yeah, I would still like to have the uh, the one delta we were looking at, the Anycubic. Whoops. If you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm redoing the grill, and I want to simplify the mesh. So I'm destroying the mesh in order to rebuild it. We can rebuild it. We have the technology. That way I can start with a clean slate. Because sometimes you just need to start with a clean slate. Alright, we've rebuilt the base of the grill that I can start modifying for multi-material. Hey Roy, are you still here? Since you get to be the first one to test this. Do you like square headlights or round on your Jeeps? Or do you want me to make both versions? I hope it's just rain. I hope it's not like storm kind of stuff for you guys, Skalda and Ben. Okay, well maybe I will make both versions. See, and that's the other thing about making the my designs modular is not only can I sit down and redesign new parts for stuff, but you guys can sit down and modify your own parts for stuff. Whoop. I still never glued that on. But since Roy's going to be the first one to test it, I will make the square ones first. Just kind of, it's nice being able to hold one in my hand and just kind of look at it and visualize. Things I might want to try. Oh no. What happened there? I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I hit enter too many times. I shouldn't be doing that. Alright, well, we'll do it the hard way. Just eyeball it. I'd be interested, but it cost way too much to ship across the pond. That, and you'd have to wait way too long before I could afford it. With Christmas coming up. Whoa. What happened there? But I'd like it not to happen again. Hey, Vince. I'm working on a new grill design for the VSV, and an optional grill, and eventually going to try cutting it apart for multi-material. So we're starting right now with just the basic shell. Which I'm thinking maybe those need to be... Yeah, that needs to stay sharp. Oh, you told me the S5 wasn't together. You didn't tell me it was sitting in your trunk, dude. No love for the S5s. I love my S4. It prints very nice. I imagine the S5 could be made to print almost as nice. I mean, you're going to have some degradation because of the increased mass on the bed, but be interesting to see what you could accomplish with an S5 if you put like Highwind rails on it and replaced all the wheels with Highwind rails, at least on the X and the Y. Well, I will continue this offline. We're getting to that 2 hour point anyway. I appreciate you guys very, very much. And I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial this morning. And if you didn't get a chance to watch it, it's very short and it's at the beginning of the video. So feel free to come back and revisit it any time to learn how to make axles and wheels. And I will start game planning pretty much now for what I want to do next tutorial Tuesday. Maybe we'll do tires. That would be kind of cool, since we now know how to do wheels and axles. And then yeah, we'll do some. I'll show you guys how I make tires. It's not, you know, how everybody would suggest to make tires, but I find it's the easiest way to make sure they stay manifold, and you can make some interesting designs and stuff with it too. There are ways to make tires that look better, but they're also trickier to make manifold. So I appreciate you guys very much. Anyone who's made it all the way to this point after the tutorial, other than, you know, the people just hanging out, if somebody come back and watch on this at a later date and you're not subscribed, if you like the tutorials and just hanging out and chatting and that kind of thing, like, subscribe, all that stuff. And right now the plan is to stream again on Thursday. So if you know anybody who is working in Blender and needs help, I will do a Hangout style stream and try to help you with it. Or if you are a Blender designer expert and would like to share your experience and thoughts with my viewers, hit me up, DM me on Twitter, and we will set up a Hangout stream for Thursday. That's what I want to do on Thursdays. If I find people that either need help or Blender designers who want to share their knowledge and experience with my viewers, and kind of, you know, promote themselves as well as designers, they're welcome to do that as well. So appreciate you guys, and thank you to everyone that stopped in today, and the ones that are still here. I know Ben and Scalda and Don and Ryan and Vince. You guys are all here. If anybody else is here, D is still here. Thank you guys for stopping in, hanging out today, and we will see you. We will see you on Mike Whaley's stream tomorrow, and then back here on Thursday. So appreciate you guys. We'll see you later. Oh, and John's here. Thank you, John. Bye, guys. And Roy. Thanks, guys.